I'm delighted to say Sarah Donovan here with Sarah. Cork GAA generally in the green after the performance from the hurlers. I looked at the score at half time and went, oh, this is interesting. Double scores, Limerick just rolling. And then at the end of the game, there was real bites, real fights, real quality.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, it's the league. We can't get carried away. But you're a Cork hurling fan. You must be getting a bit carried away.
I was in love with that second half, every aspect of it. Even from the Limerick point of view, both teams went at it, and Patrick Horgan spoke during the week about staying in the fight for as long as they could, and the beauty of it was that they stayed in the fight till the 78th minute. That's what I loved about it.
Well, when you say that during the week, right, and your double scores down at half time, you have to back it up at the weekend.
I agree. At half-time, I think they were able to reassess. A couple of times last year and in the previous years, Cork have come out of the traps, been excellent. Against Kilkenny a couple of years ago in Croke Park, quarter final of the All-Ireland, they were heads and shoulders above Kilkenny. Kilkenny came out in the second half and destroyed them, right? Last year again against Galway, started really well, fell apart. So this time around, to see them go down and be able to come back, I'd rather...
Yeah, you want to be at the end.
I'd rather have them that way. Yeah.
Better to be a second half team than the first half team.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the big things in the second half for me, laid on Conor O'Callaghan, cornerback, and Kieran Joyce, centre back, and they're smothering Cian Lynch, right? Cian Lynch has nowhere to go. Love to see that. Jack Callahan thumps Darragh Donovan out over the sideline. They win the short sideline cut. Shane Kingston gets the score. They're the inches that Cork were winning the last night, and I love that.
We had a big conversation, philosophical conversation about the importance of the league on Friday night, and I think last year's league probably ruined the league for everybody, because at the end of it we're like, oh, Waterford are really good, and then they completely fell apart. But that's not guaranteed. A good league doesn't mean that you're going to be bad in the championship, right? Like Davy is in the papers talking about he wants competitive matches for his side at this stage, and he said Micheál O'Donoghue likewise. Everybody's trying to find something in the league that they're going to be able to cling to and use as inspiration or form or partnerships. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that some of this will actually matter at the end of the year. We'll be able to look back and go, that mattered, or these players came through. Like Limerick have trimmed their panel. That matters, you know. Decisions are being made by the management teams that would be the basis for what at the end of the year they look back and go, we set down patterns of behaviour, we set down the culture at this point, and the good teams will be able to carry that through. Yeah,
but there's things that I saw on Saturday night that immediately I went, oh, that's different to last year. So Padraig Walsh, centre back for Kilkenny, Cody had all but retired him, like, you know, and now Derek Ling sees him as an option at centre back because obviously he's great at holding structure. Luke Meade for Cork, incredible performance Saturday night. Kingston had relegated him to the sideline for most of last year's championship. Pat Ryan's decided he's got something to offer. Declan Dalton was sitting 2 seats in front of me last year for the Galway game. Cork had no interest in him, and he scores, you know, crucial goal for Cork Saturday night. New managers, massive freshness. Loved Adam English the last night for Limerick. Really thought Conor Coughlin's performance for Limerick, real standout performance, making really good decisions late on in the game. Barry Murphy for Limerick the last day, thought he was really good. In the Dublin setup, a West Cork man playing midfield for Dublin. Chris O'Leary from my own parish in Shannon. Those things, that's what the league does. It highlights these players, and that's what you're talking about. And if you can build confidence, if you give the manager confidence that you can perform now, they'll back you to still be in the team. And then look, we know it's a bit of a different sport when the weather's good versus now at the moment, and the pitches are very heavy. But at the same time, like, that's why this stuff matters. Yeah, well, if you look at Conor Lehan, it took him 76 minutes to score in the game Saturday night. What a touch, what a score to level the game. You know, that's why he's still on the field. That's why Pat Ryan still has him on the field, because he has that composure. That's the kind of thing that matters come April or May. There's a bit of a championship feel as well. I don't know if it's the attendances or the fact that these games are Saturday nights under lights, but there's something different down the home stretch. It feels like there's a lot on the line. I know it's only a league game, but like even... But is it only a league game? Well, it's not only... It's a career, though. It's a player's career. True. And there's like, it was even gamesmanship at half-time. Limerick, I think, took a significant amount of time to come out of the dressing room, and Cork standing there waiting for the second half start. Backfired a little bit because Cork were brilliant in that second half, as you say, but there was just an extra special feel about those games, especially on Saturday night. I think because of the social media now and the increased exposure that players have, every game is important to them. That's why the league has become as important as the championship, because, as I said, players are building their reputation week on week on week, and that's why every player is looking to play his best regardless of the nature of the game. Even the Munster League had a bit of bite.
I kind of feel as well like we haven't quite settled into the new routine of the league and then the round robin happening really quick after it, and then the championship, exploding after that. Like last year was the first year of it, so people didn't really know what to do, and now it was the first proper year of it post-COVID. And now I think most managers will have their entire periodisation mapped out, and that there's a possibility that some team comes and has a great league and just rides that momentum all the way through to All-Ireland quarterfinals, semi-finals, and look, then it's a different ballgame. But I wouldn't be terribly surprised to see a team who we don't expect to make the semi-finals this year make it on the back of a good league.
I agree. I think though what the managers are looking for this year is depth, because if you look at what happened to Wexford against Clare in last year's championship, they were in it, had a couple of injuries, Roy O'Connor had to go off, they didn't have the players to come on, and I think the managers this year are very conscious that they need to find 3 or 4 players who can make the difference in a championship setting if you have those injuries, because the games come so quickly.
Yeah, and I suppose the other thing is there's no real jeopardy if you're a top tier team. It doesn't really matter if you're in the first tier or the second tier. There's no chance of you properly being relegated to meaningless, and there's loads of competition in these games, so you can take risks.
Yes.
with certain players, and we'd always talk about the rugby players or the footballers. Like the rugby players, it's impossible to see if you make too many changes how good these players are going to be. Whereas if you pick the core of your team and then add in 3 or 4, at least they're playing with top quality inter-county players as opposed to it being Walsh Cup teams.
And that's what what the managers are trying to do, is to try and allow these new players to come in and have that experience, because if you get a quality ball, that can give you a chance to have a quality score. If you look at Cian O'Sullivan's goal the last day for Dublin, like what I was really impressed about with Dublin was their technical skills seem to have come on massively, like in massive catches. And Owen O'Donnell and that full back, lads, what a warrior. If there was a transfer market, he'd be the lad that I'd be looking to get into Cork. I think he's a phenomenal hurler. But that's what I was excited about at the weekend, is just the improvement in the players. And when you saw with Davy Fitz, he's like, right, I need to do something here. He brings in Desi Hutchinson, he brings in Ozzie Gleeson. Dublin were a bit naive. They thought Ozzie Gleeson was going to go for that late score to level the game, and he decides to go for a goal with Mikey Kiley. That's the beauty of the league, is Ozzie was willing to try that.
What do you think is the ceiling for this Waterford team at the moment? Like, are they straight away All-Ireland contenders because of the quality of... Because this time last year we were saying they're absolutely All-Ireland contenders. They're coming off the back of a deep run. Now, they've never had a deep run when there's been they have had it with the round robin, but it's been a long time. Is there a possibility that Davy can immediately make them a team who's going to be strong enough, deep enough to get out of the round robin and still be standing in All-Ireland quarter-final weekend?
I think it's a discipline thing with that group. It showed on Saturday. They were fiery. They made a couple of decisions which resulted in them going down to 13 men. We've seen that a couple of times last year. Discipline with Ozzie Gleeson, an incredible hurler, but you need to have him on the pitch. So Davy has to work on the discipline aspect as much as their hurling, but there's no doubt Jamie Barron, Jack Prendergast, Desi Hutchinson, the pace that team has, the way they play, the pace which they play at, really, really hard to combat that.
So are they all Ireland contenders? Or
if you look at the game between Wexford and Galway, I would have said Waterford look like they're ahead of both of those teams. So Galway got an All-Ireland semi-final last year, pushed Limerick all the way. Waterford came up too early, we'll say. I would put Waterford ahead of Galway.
I know both of those teams, Wexford and Galway, were missing. Galway were missing the St Thomas's contingent and the Cooney brothers as well. But Wexford were also missing players. But, I mean, if you're a Wexford fan, given the amount of wides, and I think they only scored twice from play in the second half, you'd be really concerned of those two teams to be a Wexford supporter at the moment, because they did look fairly abject.
It wasn't the shooting, and everyone was going on about the shooting. They had 43% shooting conversion in the first half. My issue was their structure. They couldn't maintain their structure, so you couldn't tell who was playing midfield and who was playing half back. That's my issue with some of the teams at the minute. Is you saw in the first half Cork and Limerick, there were so many gaps. Cork couldn't figure out. Limerick were defending together, attacking together, pushing forward and coming back. Cork had to really figure out their structure to be able to close the gaps. Wexford couldn't do that. Dublin did that really well against Waterford. They held their structure really well, and that's what I was impressed about with Michael O'Donoghue. Obviously he's gone in and said, first things first, let's figure out how we close the gaps.
I thought last year in the league, Dublin were great for a period and then had a really tricky game against Kilkenny and never seemed quite to recover the confidence from that over the course of the rest of the season. And again, that's one of the other reasons why if you take a shellacking on a day where you expect to do well, it can damage and derail the rest of your season. It feels like Micheál Donoghue has enough nous and experience, like he's a serious fella, that I don't know, you'd love to see Dublin being proper contenders and Micheál Donoghue's hurling brain being the one that gets them there.
Well, look, I saw an Instagram post last week, Liam Rush, David Tracy and Chris Crummy out in Byron Bay, right? Micheál O'Donoghue probably took on the job and didn't expect to lose such quality. So for him to turn around on Saturday and get a draw against Waterford with players like Cian Boland, Alex Considine, Cian O'Sullivan, Chris O'Leary, the aforementioned Cork man, Owen O'Donnell, there was some massive performances there, and these guys are only going to get better, you know, and they don't have that stigma of the last number of years.
Okay, so Limerick obviously don't care what happens in this league, right? Because we know that they're an all-time great team and they have all-time great talent, and we'll see exactly who is in their championship panel when it's named for the first proper Munster Championship match. But after that, who's feeling confident and who's feeling good about life?
I would say, realistically, Cork on the basis of Saturday night and beating Tip in the Munster League the way they did. Tip put up 232 at the weekend. I know we aren't necessarily going to cover it, but 232 is a big score. Clare hit 427 at the weekend. Every team is motoring in the right direction. April 30th is Cork's first game against Waterford. I would say there's 6 teams in contention right now.
See, that's not very far away at all, is it? Like that's why
9 weeks.
Yeah, that's why I do wonder if it's that easy to like, oh, it's just the league, and you know, I think
you have
we'll
to
see.
I think crucially here, lads, is before Christmas we were watching all the club games, right? And we had kind of 4 months of club, and now the league started. The pace of it by comparison to the club,
Yeah.
it's like a feast. I was so excited at the weekend.
And I think that's why the numbers of people going to matches is so big, even though also it's like, yeah, but I think I don't know,
Quality, the contrast in quality, and that's no disrespect to the clubs, it's just you're seeing professional versus club setup.
Is the style of play with Kilkenny under Ling carry on from Cody, or is it entirely different?
Looking at it on Saturday, it was hard to tell. Like Antrim had a really good structure, that's why they only lost by 7.
Yeah.
You know, they worked really hard to close the gaps. So it'll be interesting to see how Kilkenny get on this weekend. I think they're playing on Sunday.
Yeah.
All right, Sarah, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us. That's Sarah Donovan giving us some thoughts on the hurling from the weekend.